Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the ATI podcast. We're in here for episode 143. And the special artist that we have this week for our guest spotlight is Blossom out of Southern California. We have Mateo with us. How are we doing this evening?
Doing great. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing awesome, Mateo. I know we already locked into the right wavelength as we discussed before we started recording. You've got the Melancholy Infinite Sadness flag in the background.
Yeah.
I always like to pick out an artist album that I feel like ties into the folks that I'm talking to. Is a little Easter egg in the background. So we got Siamese Dream, one of my all-time favorite albums as well. So we're off to a good start tonight.
Yeah, it's a great record.
What I love about Blossom is that you guys have kind of a bit of a old school shoegaze sounds, influence a little bit of, the early alt rock like we've pointed out here. That's pretty evident in your guys' music, I feel like. And I always like to let artists know where I hear about them from. And I discovered you guys through the Cult Nation article that they put out. They're gassing you guys up pretty hardcore. So I usually take references there. And in this instance, it was a grand slam.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
As we mentioned earlier, some of the older stuff that I'm hearing in you guys is kind of what just kind of sunk the hooks into me as a listener. Curious to hear, what are some formative artists for you, Mateo, that kind of helped shape your musical journey?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to more of the alternative stuff, I guess it was really like stuff like Nirvana, Weezer. I was really into Weezer, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, I guess like the main 90s grunge bands pretty much, and alternative artists. And then later on it became Slowdive and MBV and bands like that pretty much.
Yeah, I would say that it's very obvious that Slowdive and MBV are influences. In fact, I think you guys have a nice dichotomy of your sound in the sense that you get kind of dreamy and ethereal. So you guys kind of touch that Slowdive vibe in that regard. But then again, as we mentioned, you kind of lean into those alt rock moments. So, something that you would hear off of Siamese Dream or even Melancholy and Infinite Sadness as far as the guitar rock parts. Those moments are present as well, I feel like. So, yeah, you guys are a case of the influences or surface level, and I'm here for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, those are just bands that I definitely try to take from and try to make it still my own, but they're great bands.
So how long has Blossom officially been a band?
So I started the project back in August of 2021, and so that was my freshman year of high school. And then it was kind of rotating members, and then Blossom played our first show on January 14th, 2022, and then ever since then we started playing shows actively, and it's been a fluctuating lineup ever since then, but yeah.
Your occupation in the band, of course, is playing guitar and singing.
Yes.
So how about the other members? Do you have what other permanent members, or do you have a set lineup now?
Yeah, so who we have in the band right now is we have Emma on lead guitar, my friend Joseph on bass, and then Justice on drums.
Very nice. I always like to touch on with artists too, how we're achieving these sounds. So just out of curiosity, do you have kind of a lineup or rig that you use pretty routinely?
Yeah, I run through a good bit of reverb. I'm running right now. One of my favorite reverb pedals is the even tight space pedal and the TC Electronic T2. It's the Trinity, but it's like the second version. And yeah, I've been really into the Russian Big Muff, of course, the OCD. I recently just got the HM2 by Boss, but it's the Wazacraft one, and that one's really cool. Yeah, you can get some nice kind of fuzzy. I know Belinda Butcher from MBV used it live. I can't say if it was for recording as well, but it's a sick pedal. But yeah, I mean that's mainly the foundation of what I kind of, I don't want to say need, but kind of need for Blossom and
Sure,
getting those juices running.
absolutely.
Pretty much.
Obviously, kind of signatures of shoegaze is, having kind of multiple pedals and effects and sometimes layering reverbs and that sort of stuff. And you're doing a really good job of capturing kind of those raw tones and stuff too, for sure. Is there a particular amp setup that you have going on?
Right now, the amp I use is a JC 120. And yeah, it's like I would say it's my dream amp, and yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's what I use live. That's what I definitely try to take into recording, is always using the JC. And yeah, and I recently just got a twin reverb as well, and yeah, both great amps.
Oh, very nice. And then guitar wise, are you rocking a Jazzmaster, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it's a Classic Player 2017 or 18 Fender Classic Player. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jazzmaster.
beautiful guitar, man.
But yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's I've had it for hmm, not that long. I would say like maybe 2 years now, and it's my first Fender,
Yeah.
and it's great. I love it. I haven't don't want to get rid of it, and yeah.
As far as playing music, was guitar the first instrument you learned? Do you know other instruments?
Guitar was the only thing, like, yeah, instrument wise, it was the only thing that I kind of gravitated towards. I tried piano a little bit after playing guitar, and I was like, this is too complicated. So I try to dabble in it. Like, now
Sure.
that I have, I would say, an okay ear with guitar, I try to, you know, translate notes on the guitar to the piano and try to, do covers here and there for fun. But um, yeah, yeah, guitar is the only thing that's kind of stuck with me.
How long have you been playing guitar?
I've been playing guitar for 6 years now. I started playing when I was 11.
Did you start with lessons or self-taught? Uh, Walk me through that.
So yeah, I mean, at the time when I was 11, I was really into Queen, and I want to say that's like when the whole Bohemian Rhapsody biopic came out, and I was like, oh shoot, like, and I was also getting into Nirvana, Weezer, and all those bands.
Yeah.
Because my uncle actually, he showed me all these bands because I was into like Michael Jackson and Queen, and he's like, that's cool, but check out these bands. And yeah, I told him because he also plays guitar. And I was like, yeah, kind of. I don't know if I told him or if my mom told him, but he decided to give me my first guitar, which was an Ibanez. And yeah, one day he came over and was like, "Here you go." And yeah, he gave me my first lesson, and I think the next lesson I had done after that was with him as well, and then it was kind of self-taught from there. But yeah,
We kind of touched on this earlier with the advancements of technology and everything else. It's kind of a little easier to be self-taught in some regards if you have the self-discipline, of course, and that's resources like YouTube and Ultimate
definitely,
Guitar,
yeah,
and I mean
YouTube
you can
helped a
go
lot.
on and on and on. But
Yeah,
yeah, I would say maybe the drive for you, just like many other guitars, that's I'm primarily a drummer, but I play guitar. I can play guitar as well, and kind of my drive for playing guitar was learning cover songs at first. Finding a song that you liked and picking that out, and then that leads to you kind of writing your own stuff. So do you remember the first song maybe that you ever learned on the guitar?
I do. And this is one my uncle also taught me because he was trying to figure out, all right, what's a good entry song to teach you, and he taught me "Hash Pipe" by Weezer,
Oh,
which
nice.
is like a three chord. I don't even think he taught me it with chords yet. He only did like the single note on the A, and later on we later adapted those, or put those power chords with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was the first song he taught me, and I learned.
Well, a lot of people's first songs are things like "Eye of the Tiger," and so it's nice to hear somebody give a Weezer answer for once. Yeah, the Blue Album and Pinkerton, those are two of the best records of the '90s as far as I'm concerned.
I
I'm still with them on the
absolutely
Green
love those
Album. I'm
records.
still with them. I know some people start falling off at that point, but yeah, man, it's
It took me a good bit to get on that album, but no, that's a great album as well.
yeah, it's hard to beat that '90s Weezer stuff as far as rock guitar is concerned. Really good shit
For sure,
happening
yeah,
there for
definitely.
sure. So Blossom's been in some sort of form or fashion, I guess, the last 4 years almost now, approximately. And I know that you've put out a bit of material already. So you had the singles that we mentioned previously, but of course you had the EP in 2022, and you have an EP that you guys put out last year as well. Both incredible records, but you can also hear, I don't want to necessarily maturity, but like progression in musicality, I would say is very evident
Thank you.
already. So you guys are leveling up very quickly. Would you attribute that to maybe more reps as a musician or better finding your voice? I don't know if this is something that you're noticing yourself. Sometimes it's hard whenever you're blazing the path to realize what path you're on, but just kind of curious to hear what you're thinking on your side of things.
Yeah, I guess the first EP I didn't put too much thought into where we were going with it because to this day I still think it's a very out of place EP. Like all the tracks don't quite make sense to one another. But at the time I thought of it as like a palette of what we're able to kind of do.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, the second EP was definitely like, all right, I want to be a little bit more consistent with what we maybe plan on doing in the future, or at least just what I'm into right now. So yeah, I wrote those songs trying to be a little bit more consistent. And yeah, I guess I don't want to say maybe it was then, but especially now I try to have a little bit more maturity when it comes to writing those like new songs, and I try not to get stuck on trying to sound mature, but because I know it's just going to happen. Whatever
sure.
happens, happens. But yeah, I mean, I guess it was just stuff I was into at the time that really just drove me to write those songs and just
Absolutely.
influenced me. If I wanted to rip off a song, I ripped off a song, and you know,
See where it took you.
just try to yeah, just try to put my own twist on it.
At the end of the day, we're all like reflections of what our influences are, and how we filter those through our lenses. And we've touched on the fact that I think that some of those influences that we've already discussed are pretty evident. But what are maybe some influences that an outsider might not pick up on right away? What is something that you feel like that you're a big fan of musically that may have influenced your songwriting?
I guess trying to be catchy, um, which I guess that comes from me being into like pop music when I was younger. I would say I was really into like 80s pop and stuff like that. Like I mentioned before, I was into like Michael Jackson and just like, the 80s hits and shit
Yeah.
like that. I was really into Michael Jackson. Like,
Oh, he's one of the
yeah,
best ever, if
those
not, yeah, I'm king of pop.
his records, yeah, 100%. But yeah, like I was into him, and I can't say I was heavily into 80s pop, but I was into the hits a lot. And um, yeah, I would say maybe that's something that someone wouldn't quite guess, but I would hope that I can try to bring that to how I write today.
Whenever we start talking about counterculture and French music and that sort of stuff, it sometimes becomes niche or tribalistic to look down your nose at pop music. But, there is smart pop music out there. There is, thought that goes into it. That's its own machine in and of itself. But, I've always had a respect for pop. I can't say that, everything that's in the top 40 is my favorite, but, there are those that
For
break the
sure.
mold, I think. And, it's just like anything else. Something that our listeners have heard me say a million times on this podcast, and there's always exceptions to the rules. So I never encourage folks to, be like, oh, I hate this specific genre. And while you might not like most of the stuff that's in there, I would venture to tell you I could probably find an artist that would push the bounds of your taste profile or what your preconceived notions
Definitely.
are. So, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
having some
there's always
pop
going to be those
sensibilities.
yeah, there's always going to be those gems in different genres for sure.
Yeah, and pop is definitely one that has, for years, obviously gotten the songwriting portion of things down in the sense of an understanding of hooks, an understanding of melody. Some would say formulaic songwriting. However, familiarity is a hell of a thing. And when you can tap into nostalgia and things like that too, that's another thing that pop music often gets right as well. But I think that's where we can kind of draw those comparisons back to Blossom, is that you're kind of taking some of the notes on things like that, I believe. I mean, there's just some straight up standout parts that I'd almost have to do a double take because, I mean, it sounds exactly like something off of a Slowdive record, like the early, 90s Slowdive stuff. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, it's refreshing to hear some young cats throwing it back 30 plus years as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, definitely with especially with structure from pop. I didn't care too much with structure when I was making the first EP, but definitely with the second one I was like, all right, I got to start having some sort of, structure to these songs cuz I didn't care to write bridges and
Sure.
still don't really care to write bridges, but I try to now and try to incorporate that, pop structure,
Sure.
the verse, chorus, verse, and stuff like that.
It kind of adds I think like a decisiveness to your music too, which in turn translates to, whether you know it or not, a confidence in the execution of what you're laying out there for people. So even on the most recent EP, Florser, there's a lot of those moments that we talked about earlier. Like I really enjoy hearing you kind of lean into the more alt rock stuff. Do you feel like that's something that's kind of impressed upon you on time that you feel like you want to incorporate more going forward?
Not too much. I don't know. I think I can say that that stuff, the more alternative stuff, like I guess songs like Exempt, which
Right.
is on that last EP, it was definitely me trying to do something. But would I incorporate stuff like that now? Probably not. I think doing that EP was like a good test run of like, all right, this is like the really main foundation of things that I want to try to incorporate, but what's really going to work out with, how I want to start doing stuff.
Hmm.
And I would say, I guess, more dreamy stuff like Soothe and Warm Stay.
Sure.
That's the stuff that really I have more fun making, and in the long run that I'm more proud of.
I think Warm
Not to
Stay's a
say that
nice
I'm not proud
hybrid
of.
though, too. You've especially with
Yeah,
that guitar tone that
definitely.
you have in there.
Yeah, like I think that one's one that has little pieces that I can be like, oh, I got that from that from that,
Right.
and it's off stuff that kind of makes sense for me. But yeah, that's a song I'm really proud of. Not to say I'm not proud of Exempt. Definitely not my favorite, but yeah, it's in the future stuff. I wouldn't expect to be writing stuff
Yeah.
like that, I guess.
Warm Stay seems a bit to kind of be your popular hit that people have gravitated towards. Is that something that you foreseen coming, or is that a surprise to you? I'm always kind of curious to hear that from artists.
Ooh, yeah, it's had a reaction, I guess, in
Yeah.
some way. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I would have saw it being the way it is. Not to say that it's like it's huge, but it's definitely, I guess, a standout track compared to the other ones. But yeah, I wrote it, and I was mainly proud of it, mainly because that I had added structure for once. Like there is a transition into the chorus, and then there's a
Right.
bridge, and then there's like an outro, and that was the first time I actually had implemented those things like that into my songwriting. So yeah, I was definitely proud of that, and I was just like, no, it's good, it's good. But I can't say I would have expected it to be how it is right
I'm gonna
now.
toot your horn because that's an incredible track and well deserved for the flowers that you guys are getting from what I've seen.
Thank you.
If this is indicative of a foundation that you're building upon going forward, I think big things are yet to come. But we mentioned Soothe earlier. That's an aptly named track, my friend. That will that sets the mood for you. It definitely sedates and soothes. It's one of your more ethereal tracks, and I think it shows kind of the nice contrast on that softer side of things that we were touching on earlier. That's a really standout track for you guys as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely love that one personally, and it's fun to play, and sometimes I'll go back to listen to it, and yeah, it's a fun track. I like it a lot.
I'm curious from a lyrical standpoint. Of course, we all know that kind of the shoegaze standard is, you've the vocals are a little bit behind in the mix. That's a signature of the sound, and so sometimes artists. I'm trying to say this without sounding like it's a shot because I totally don't mean it to be, but sometimes artists will not
No, for sure.
think of lyrics to be that imperative or that important if that's the application.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And I'm just kind of curious to hear what your lyrical approach is. Are these things personal moments and things that you're drawing from in life, or what inspires you to write lyrics?
I always try to put meaning behind lyrics, because I know that is a stereotypical thing within shoegaze where it's like, say whatever, they won't know.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter. You can't hear the vocals. But I guess from in the influence I have from bands like whirr,
Yeah.
where you do read their lyrics and it's very impactful and you can find meaning behind it. And I was definitely like, all right, I want to take that aspect of whirr being, you know, gut wrenching lyrics, and I want to try to implement that into my own writing. So I definitely try to put in personal experiences into my writing and try to make it mean something to at least myself. If it doesn't mean anything to me at least, then I probably won't use it. But I try to put my meaning to stuff like that.
I mean, there's people that can kind of objectively write lyrics and write them well, and they never mean anything about them. But I think it always translates to the listener, regardless of whether they actively know this or not, is, when there's meaning behind lyrics. This might be kind of hippie-ish of me to say, but in the spirit of the music, if you will. I feel like that energy is conveyed and translated through the music. And, even just reading over some of your lyrics, it seems like there is quite the personal touch, which just kind of adds to, the experience and the enjoyment that I get out of your guys' music as well.
Thank you. No, yeah, that's definitely something I want to later improve on uh, and keep implementing for sure.
You mentioned the band whirr earlier, of course. So, as far as more modern bands, that I would say that you guys definitely have a bit of a degree in you. And, whirr is definitely a comparable artist in some instances. Maybe Nothing a little bit, especially like earlier Nothing is somewhat evident, especially in those alt rock leaning moments. Because you mentioned whirr, my mind keeps getting fixated on this. What'd you think of the surprise release last year on Christmas Eve?
I think they did it again. I mean,
Yes.
I think it's great. The songwriting is it's a lot. It's still a progression from the other stuff. Not like they got comfortable in the pocket that they were in, then they grew beyond Feels Like You and Blue Sugar and those two singles, and
Definitely.
ever since then, yeah. I mean, I think it's great. Yeah, a great album.
I always love seeing artists like push themselves, do something a little bit different, and then it still work for them. And they're definitely an artist that I feel like has done that with their discography. But yeah, that I was up a little late. It was my wife's birthday that night, and I was getting things cleaned up after everybody went to bed, and we were getting the Christmas tree ready for the kids and all that stuff. So I just so happened to open up my Bandcamp, and I got a notice that they just released a new album. I'm like, oh, this is a joke. There's no way they released a new album. I went to their Bandcamp, and I'm like, holy hell! And I listened to it from start to finish that night. Like before I went to bed, I had to listen to it. Just great.
Yeah, I was at Christmas dinner, and I look at my uncle and I'm like, yo, we're just dropped right now, and we were like, oh shit. And then yeah, I listened to it the next day, and I was like, whoa, like yeah. I mean, if it didn't come out in 2024 and it came out this year, it would have been my album of the year.
Yeah.
Or it is my album of the year. I don't care.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna spoiler alert, everybody. We do a favorite albums of the year episode at the end of the year each year on our podcast network, and I didn't have whirr on there last year, of course, because we recorded that episode before it even dropped, and so I will cheat and probably put it on my list this year because the physical didn't come out until actually, in fact, it's not out yet. It's gonna be out in April, so we're gonna cheat. I'm gonna let you know. Reddit right now. You guys got breaking news.
Definitely made sure to get that LP when it came out.
Absolutely. Yep, that was the moment that they put the pre-order up. That was one that I had to hop on, and I have to be selective about that nowadays. But one of the goats in the industry in their particular field is doing something. You got to pay attention, pay respect.
Definitely, yeah. We owe them a lot of money for sure. All these shoegaze fans, but
now, speaking of which, kind of more modern artists that I think that folks, again, I like to try and give some touch points that, if you've heard this band, you might like Blossom in the event that they're just tuning in for the first time and discovering you guys. A former guest of ours, Cold God. In fact, I know Matt's a fan of what you guys do. I've had some discussions with him about that in the past as well. So, but yeah, Cold God is another artist. If you folks remember them from our previous episodes, that I think if you like them, you're going to like Blossom as well.
Yeah, I was just re-listening to that Matt episode today, and no, yeah, I'm a big fan of Cold God's music. Yeah, I saw them actually open for Deftones a few years, I think 3 or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and yeah, they're awesome. Every time they come to San Diego, I try to catch them, and we've been fortunate enough to play with them actually last year. But yeah, they're great people. And a great band. I love them.
When you guys played with them, was that on the string of dates with, was it Gouge Away by chance? I'm trying to remember.
No, unfortunately, I saw that tour actually, and that was a very cool tour.
Yeah.
But no, we did a single show in LA at the Roxy, opening up for Scarlet House.
Speaking of bands that you guys have played with, I believe you guys played with Glare. So yeah. Another great artist in the field, of course. Excited about that album this year too.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm excited. I think it comes out next week.
I think so. Yeah, I think the ship date on my vinyl was like April 4th or something, maybe April 2nd. Probably got my dates mixed up, but
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Gonna check that one out.
Gonna be seeing them at LDB this year, so I'm pumped about that as well. Last episode, we actually had Commoner on, and they sang your guys' praises as well. good group of guys as well over there on NMZ. And one thing that we touched on is this really cool movement now with, in particular, I see a lot of like cross pollination and love between hardcore and kind of the grunge gauge and gaze and shoegaze movements that are going on right now. So you're seeing a lot of alt rock leaning acts playing with hardcore bands, and it's being more and more accepted, and mixed bills are becoming more and more prevalent. I feel like, I haven't seen mixed bills like this in probably 20 plus years that everybody's vibing to and everybody's down with. I'm just kind of curious, have you guys seen that in your community and your scene and some of your experiences? Have you guys have gotten those same chances to maybe kind of dabble in the hardcore scene and play some of those shows too?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would love to, because definitely going to my first hardcore show was the first time I saw like a sense of community within like a music scene that I didn't know was really there. I think it was it was like 2 months into me starting Blossom, whatever it was gonna be. I went to my first hardcore show with my uncle. It was this Chula Vista hardcore band called Take Offense, and a bunch of other bands are, I want to say, Mongrel. Yeah, seeing that show was really cool because I had been to shows before, like, but it's like, more concerts,
Sure,
if you want to say that,
sure,
like nothing. But it was cool seeing people like say hi to people they knew, and seeing this, it was beyond the band playing that brought them all there. Is,
right.
everyone just knowing one another, not everyone knowing each other. And yeah, that was super cool. So definitely seeing that made me even more intrigued to really build a community beyond just the music.
Mm.
And I'd love to do a hardcore show someday. And yeah, unfortunately you don't see that too much in San Diego, but yeah, hopefully it starts
Well,
happening.
I think it's just a matter of time for you guys, especially with some of the artists that you guys are playing with, have played with, will play with. A lot of those folks are dabbling in that. Again, we just mentioned them, but Glare, they're a band that has done so.
Right.
They're on Sunday Drive Records. My friends Squint from St. Louis are on there as well, but a lot of good bands on that record label. They do a lot of
Yeah.
encouraging of, I mean, they've got artists across the entire musical palette as well. So do a lot of mixed bill
Yeah,
stuff.
totally.
So yeah, I see it. I see it coming sooner rather than later for you.
Hopefully. Yeah.
What is something in the pipeline that you can share with us that Blossom has going on, whether it's new music you're working on, shows, fest dates? What do we got cooking?
Trying to think about what I can say. Um, yeah, I mean, the next show we have is next month. Uh, yeah, it'll be on April 21st at Soda Bar in San Diego. We'll be playing with LSD and the Search for God. Super excited about that one. Oh yeah, new music for sure. This year, for sure this year.
Nice.
And yeah, I don't want to say how much music, but for sure, hopefully, hoping to start touring this year. Um, that's definitely something on the to-do list for 2025. And yeah,
Well, I'm excited to hear about new music, and as details become available to the general public, of course, our listeners know that once you're an artist on the ATI podcast, you're part of the ATI podcast alumni. You're part of the family, so we'll continue to share that news as it's sent out to keep our audience
thank you.
informed. And so they know what you got in the pipeline as well. So they maybe, once we get to the tour dates and that sort of stuff, they can catch you in a city near you. And anything that you have coming out, record album wise, we can get physical media, we can support you, merch, all that
Thank you.
fun stuff. Speaking of which, I did pillage through the band camp and I saw that pretty much everything was sold out. You got any pro tips for anybody maybe wanting to purchase something Blossom related to support the artist, whether it's your physical media or merch or anywhere else that you guys have stuff out there?
DM us on Instagram and I'll send out stuff.
All right.
Do not buy from our
Very
Bandcamp. I'll
good.
say that.
Okay. In this case, we're not
Don't
encouraging
do
the Bandcamp,
that.
folks.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, don't do that.
unfortunately, but yeah, I don't want to say too much
Yeah,
more on that.
I hear
But
you.
yeah,
Well, I will say, it's refreshing to hear, what I would characterize as a younger artist, not to take anything away from you guys, but you guys are wise beyond your years, whether it's through your songwriting or the music that you're creating specifically. I know that those are kind of the same thing, but the two comments mean something different at the same time. It's really refreshing to hear younger cats kind of producing such quality stuff.
thank you.
And, it really encourages me, kind of ensures some of us old heads who like to get grumpy and yell at the clouds and everything sucks, to know that the future is still
Thank
bright,
you. Yeah,
right?
definitely.
I wanted to touch on a few things so people got to know you a little bit better as far as your personal taste. I know we've kind of touched on some cornerstone artists, in your formative years, but I'm kind of curious, let's say if you were to be stranded on a desert island, the old classic question, and you had a handful of records, and I usually like to use the Mount Rushmore number, so let's say 4. If you can't keep it at 4, if you punch off a couple extra, I'm not going to hold you down, but what are some records that people can expect you to tote to the deserted island?
I'm looking at my Spotify right now. I would say Sway by Whirr. A good 8 tracks, no skips. Great album, especially on those lonely nights on the island. I would say, MBV by My Bloody Valentine. That's been a personal favorite of mine, and yeah, it's great. I don't want to pick Shoegaze, but I'll put a Michael.
Hey, nobody's stopping
I'll
you.
put
You
a
do
Mike.
what you want.
I'll
This
put
is
a Michael
Mateo's
Jackson.
world.
All right, if it's Mateo's world, I'll put Michael Jackson's Invincible. That's a great record.
Okay,
Very underrated.
interesting. That's the first time I've gotten Invincible from people. I have gotten, oddly enough, the guys in Dime, one of them selected Off the Wall,
That's
which
a
I
great,
love.
great
And
record.
that might be my favorite Michael Jackson record, to be honest with you. But yeah, people typically pick, obviously Thriller or Bad. So yeah, nice to hear something different.
Off the Wall is a great record. You know what? I'm gonna pick a soundtrack. I'm gonna do, because it's been my favorite movie for a good bit now. As basic as it may be, I'm gonna do Edward Scissorhands soundtrack by Danny Elfman. Yeah.
Love it. Oh yeah, Danny Elfman's one of my
He's
favorite
great.
composers. I totally ripped off one time progression from Edward
That's awesome.
Scissorhands. It was the scene where it's toward the beginning of the movie. He's going in the castle and the snow's falling. His dad's passed away or whatever, and it's that track that plays in that scene. I lifted out of that. We used it for a song in one of the bands I was in, and
I'm
nobody
definitely
ever
gonna
knew.
have to rip off
Had a
Danny
clue.
Elfman for sure. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. He's one of the best. He's one of the best. Yep. Nobody had a clue, so it's a nice little homage to an
Yeah,
absolute
awesome.
goat. Yeah.
I think that's 4, right? Did I pick 4? Yeah, I picked 4.
Yep.
Yeah,
You nailed
that
it.
was my
You got 4. Let's say that fantasy booking a show, so it's a fantasy booking, so you go for dead artists or the impossible if you'd like. What is a dream lineup that Blossom would get to open for? Let's say that there's a five band total bill, so Blossom's one of the 5. What other 4 bands are you putting on that bill?
I'm gonna say Sludges from San Diego, because they're great. Whirr, I'll say Whirr. Whirr headlining for sure. Or actually, I might regret saying that. Wait, hold on. Maybe MBV headlining. Danny Elfman co-headlining.
There you go.
And then Michael Jackson opening. Yeah, that'd be it. Yeah. Michael Jackson
hilarious.
headlining. We're co-headlining. Danny Elfman also co-headlining, and then Blossom and Sledges. Yeah, that'll be my.
There you go.
Hopefully
Well,
we
quite
can
the variety, and
get
I'll
Michael
accept
on
it.
that
I will accept
someday.
it. Absolutely. And everybody, the resurrected corpse of Michael Jackson.
Hoping that happens someday. I hope we find him in like Brazil or something, and he's still alive and kicking.
Well, we of course know that he's still alive. Pac is
Of
still
course.
alive as well. Well, the list goes on.
Elvis is also alive too.
For sure. Are you a big fan, Mateo, of things outside of music? Like what are other things that are hobbies for you? What are you passionate about?
I didn't know there was anything else besides music. I'm into. I recently started getting into making coffee, so that's cool.
Okay. Like with a French press
with
and
like
stuff?
like a espresso machine. Me and my family actually
Okay.
recently started a coffee car, so that's been cool.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, learning how to do
Very
stuff
cool.
like that. Sometimes a pain in the ass, but I really like it, and
Yeah.
that's been something that's been a cool new I guess hobby / almost job that I've been able to do, because it's only been music for so long that it's like, oh, learning something else, this is really foreign to me, but it's fun getting to apply that to my tool belt.
Are you a big fan of movies or TV shows, or any particular movies or
I can't
TV
say
shows?
I'm huge into movies, like I actively watch a lot, but I can appreciate a good movie.
What was like the last favorite
Oh,
movie
man.
you've seen? Something that was like profound and stuck with you.
Oh, actually, Requiem for a Dream. That was a movie that I recently
Hell
just
yeah.
watched after seeing all these fan-made were music videos with it, and I'm like, shit, this looks interesting. So
Yeah.
I watched that, and I was like, wow, yeah, it definitely was a very interesting movie. And
Yes. Darren Aronofsky, if you haven't seen any of his other films, I highly recommend Tree of Life.
okay,
That's another great one by
yeah, I'll
him.
definitely.
He did Noah which I actually thought was pretty well done. He did The Whale.
Oh, did he?
He's got a movie called Pi. He did The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. That's another great one. Yeah, he's a Mother,
Okay.
which I would argue might be his best film. That's a controversial one because of the religious homages and things that are made with that one. So,
I'll have to check this
but
out.
I think it's brilliant. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, he's one of those directors you can just go through the filmography, just pick a movie, knock it out sometime. It'll be at least worth your time. Yeah, he's
Try
very good.
implementing more movies and more visuals into our music, and yeah. Also, I'm trying to get more into now, manga and stuff like that. I think that stuff is cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Specifically, like
absolutely.
horror and like weird shit. Like, um, yeah, that stuff is cool. But yeah,
As cheesy as it is, like I like the Studio Ghibli stuff. Like I think that artistic palette
I
is
haven't
just
checked out too
amazing.
much of that, but I that's definitely on the to-do list this year because I hear so much good stuff about it, and yeah, I should get on that.
Almost everything is on HBO
All right, I'll have
Max.
to
I
get on
mean,
that.
or Max or whatever the hell they call it now, the
Yeah,
streaming service. But
yeah, I'll have to watch that.
yeah, it's a big recommendation for sure. Yeah. When I was growing up, like anime for whatever reason was kind
Hmm.
of looked down on. But I started giving it a chance here and there, and every time that I watched something, I ended up liking it. My dad was a child of the '60s, so he was like really into Speed Racer. So he showed me like the Speed Racer
Cool.
anime from back then, a long time ago. So actually, I thought, well, that's good. Is there anything like that out there? So it was kind of a search for those kind of touch points. But I would say movies like
Mm.
Akira, for example, are big movies for me that kind of turn the page on that, and actually enjoying anime movies in general. They did like an animated version of the
Oh,
Matrix as
cool.
well. There's like a Matrix anime that's really good. I recommend that too. So, but yeah, there's good anime out there. Again, it kind of goes back to that statement that we made early on in the conversation that there's
Yeah,
always exceptions
yeah,
to the rule.
definitely.
There's something for
Yeah,
everybody
and
somewhere.
like surface level, I was like, probably manga's not my thing until I got into some other stuff, and I was like, no, this genre of manga is definitely my thing.
Yeah, I've got an intention to watch the Chainsaw Man stuff,
Oh
but
yeah,
I haven't gotten around to that yet. That looks
I
right up my
saw that
alley.
stuff.
I did get the first like 2 volumes of the trade to read as well, which again, it's got kind of like those horror elements and almost like the character itself almost looks like something out of
Hmm.
Silent Hill or something like that.
I
So
wanna,
it's again, I'm a
I,
huge horror head, so it's right up
I
my
definitely want to
personal
get
alley.
more into video games, and especially like horror video games and stuff like that. Like, I know they just not rebooted, but remade Silent Hill 2. I want to try try putting my fingers in that because that seems cool.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of good older games that's getting remakes. I don't have the time to play games like I used to, but yeah, games are a great escape. I've tried to actually take the time to do a little bit more of that in the last few months. I actually kind of got
Nice.
back to gaming myself. It's a
Yeah,
good escape, man. It totally gets your mind off of, whatever problem you had that day or whatever's going on in the world. Everybody needs to detach from reality every
definitely.
once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree on that.
Is there anything in your life that, you dedicate a lot of time to, passion projects? Is there, I don't know, community involvement? Is there anything else that occupies your time, Mateo?
Besides music, not much. I like to hang out with my family. Um, but besides that, yeah, I mean, I like to
You come from a big family,
small
small
family
family?
for sure. The closest people, the the people I'm closest with is like my mom, dad, sisters, and my uncle. I would say my uncle's like my best friend. So yeah, I mean, definitely enjoy spending time with them when it's not just music or at least Blossom related things. But yeah,
Well, that's great. Some people can relate to that, some people can't. I think it's wonderful whenever somebody has a great family and a family that they're proud to be a part of and, happy to be around. It's a great thing and it's something to hold sacred. And there's few things in life that is that special.
definitely.
So cherish that for sure.
Besides that, I do enjoy collecting records and stuff like that, and going to
Sure.
record stores and trying to find stuff.
Absolutely. As far as collecting records, what's kind of like a holy grail in your collection that you
Right
have right
now
now?
I have Sway by Whirr. um, which is signed
Nice.
by 3 of the members of whirr, Devin, Joey, and Eddie.
Very cool.
I was fortunate enough. This was a different lineup of Blossom, but I was fortunate enough to play with Fawning, which is a project that I think Devin started. Devin started with his girlfriend Cheyenne, and yeah, we were able to. They did a small little run from Oakland, and yeah, we were lucky enough to play with them. They're great. They're a great band as
Hell
well.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
wonderful. Well, I'm jealous of that piece.
yeah,
for
I would
sure.
say that's my holy grail.
What's something on the list? As far as a must-have record that you don't have currently, and you're probably even considering bending on paying an obscene amount on. So it's
Ooh.
like, what's that holy grail that you don't have?
Feels Like Yours by whirr, or even Invincible, because I started getting into Invincible by Michael Jackson this year, because it's a lot more R&B-ish, I was really into that, so I started looking. I was like, oh, like, because I know they press picture discs, but I'm not too crazy about picture discs, so I looked for just a regular black or
Same.
whatever they had made, and it's like $200, and I was like, like that's kind of a lot right now, but and then Feels Like You, which unfortunately goes up for an insane amount on Discogs. Like, I think I saw one for and the grading of it was like fair, and it was like $300, and I was like, no, dude, like what? So yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah,
I'm hoping for
that's
a
too
repress,
much.
but
There's been a few times that I've on a late at night after a few cocktails and maybe a little cannabis, I've considered making some very detrimental purchases that probably would not have been wise. And I'm glad that I staved off of most of those. But I have occasionally made some very stupid purchases for the record. Not gonna act like I'm perfect over here.
Siamese Dream repress, or is that like an original cover?
Now that's the 2009 or 2010 edition. So this one's worth
Is that like
200.
the peach one? Oh, okay, cool. Nice. I have
It's
like
black
the
vinyl
2020 version with the different like colorful one, which that one's cool. But yeah, I know they just repressed it again too.
Yeah, this is
on that cover.
Yeah, I haven't checked the grading recently, but that one was pretty high actually, because there wasn't that many issues out at that point. But as you know, the more that they press it, the less the value typically goes down, unless it's an OG. I finally got Failure's Fantastic Planet. Cool. That was like a holy grail for me on vinyl. It was one of the newer represses, but I did not give a shit because Ken Andrews went through and remastered those himself. So I'm like, if the OG songwriter's doing it, I'm all about having that version of it. So, but yeah, got the first 3 Failure records of those newer presses on vinyl. It was last year or year before, so I was pretty happy about getting that. Well, Mateo, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate the conversation that we've had tonight. Let's let the good folks know where they need to stay in tune with Blossom for any quick updates. I know you guys are on Instagram. Any other social media platforms that you recommend folks following you?
Nothing besides Instagram. I'm on Instagram a lot, so we give a lot of updates. And you can find us on Blossom the Band. And check out our Spotify and Apple Music. And that's kind of it.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we're going to have all the details in our episode details, that is, the links to follow Blossom, everything that they got going on. We're going to have the jumps for their Instagram account, as well as to listen to them digitally. And of course, as those dates become available for the things that they have in the works in the future that Mateo alluded to, we'll be sharing that information as well across all of our channels too. Mateo, I'm super pumped for Blossom. Man, just wishing the best for you guys and to much success to you.
Thank you for having me. And it was an honor getting to do this, especially seeing the Matt episode. I was like, oh, hopefully I can one day get on that, and we're stoked that you asked me to be on this.
Hello, this is Barrett from the ATI podcast, here to talk about the MANIC Compression Group. The various podcasts that make up the MANIC Compression Group include ATI Podcast, Waxing On with R&J, Nod Narb's Closet from Ed Ozen, and It's Just Two Movies. The MANIC Compression Group is a voice for the voiceless, a platform for those dream chasers. The various creative arms of the MANIC Compression Group all have one goal in mind, and that is to bring a spotlight to underground artists and amazing artistic works. ATI Podcast, hosted by yours truly, focuses in on interviewing rising artists, content creators, and small businesses. Waxing On with R&J, hosted by brothers Ridge and Jake Jackson, gives love to physical media. It promotes purchasing physical media as a means to support artists, album reviews, details on production and audio quality on various formats, all with the end goal in mind to give some love to some amazing artists. Outside of the physical media love, you're going to get reviews on recent concert going experiences as well as local show calendars. Nod Narb's Closet focuses in on miniature painting, the D&D world, role-play games, as well as various niches in the hobbies of 40k Warhammer, Dungeons & Dragons, and tabletop RPGs. Led by Brandon Stewart of Ed Ozen, Nod Narb's Closet brings attention to the many talented people involved in the hobby. It's Just Two Movies, hosted by Danny King in a rotating guest panel, covers just that, two movies. One critically acclaimed or favorably viewed, and a secondary movie probably not good, but the hope is that it is so bad that it's entertaining. Sit back, enjoy some libations to the velvety tones of Danny King and guests with an injection of jocularity and improv comedy. The MANIC Compression Group can be found across all podcasting platforms, but the full experience can always be enjoyed on YouTube. We thank you all. Stay safe out there.